So I'm thinking, it's a practical car, because it gets me where I need to go, and it's paid for. So I'm thinking, $4,500. It's pretty good. So I start making phone calls, and my husband does too, and I figure out, what's it going to cost me to take advantage of $4,500? $45 free dollars. Because the only other person who offered me anything for this car was a junk guy who said he'd give me $500 for parts. And that was a year ago, and he said it's not going to run much longer, it's still going. In fact, I just gave it to my daughter to try. But I couldn't find anything that cost less than $12,500. And maybe you've got a better deal up here. That was what it was in Austin, Texas, and I was going to the big city to check out prices. So I said, wait a second. Now, so I'm going to get $4,500, but I'm going to have to give up the car that works, and then I've got to take out a loan, because I'm not in the position right now to pay for it in cash. I'm going to take out a loan to buy this car. Well, that doesn't put me in a very good position here. So we've got the government in a pickle because they had encouraged people to take loans that they really couldn't afford and shouldn't have had. And now they start dangling that carrot out there with cash for clunkers. And they're luring probably the exact same folks back in. We're going to give you $4,500, and it's like that bass. You cast it out there, you're jigging it right back, and reeling it in, and all of a sudden, boom, they hit. And the next thing they know, all of a sudden, 9 months down the road, you got that, financing for a while. 9 months down the road, this huge bill hits them. And all you can pray is that something's changed in a big way economically, that you can afford it. Now they're in even worse shape. And I'm just sick to death of thinking like that. I'm tired of people who don't have common sense. And I don't know if it's they just never, had to deal with the real world. In Texas, and I do brag on them a bit, but in Texas we can't have politicians. You can't be a full-time politician. Our legislature only meets every other year. So that off year, you've got to go back and live with what you've done. If you've passed stupid laws, you've got to live with them. If you've raised taxes, you've got to pay them. Your business has to survive on it. You've got to pay that insurance. You've got to pay all those things that you've done. Live with it, and then come back and tell us if it's working. So I do believe that people tend to think a little bit more about it. And because they aren't all lawyers, they go back and run grocery stores, or teach, or do a million other things. But they have experience, and they understand what real people go through. That seems to be what we end up missing. It's not real people that are sitting there living with it. They've got special health care. Now, I don't figure that one out. I left Fox in the end of January, and I went back to school and raised chickens. But I paid my Cobra until the end of July. And man, it was so expensive. And I'm fortunate because my husband is my littlest one. My husband's working, and so I was able to, to go on to his insurance. But I'm very interested in this whole healthcare thing because with 8 kids, 5 I gave birth to, 3 are stepkids. But with 8 kids, we've got a lot of medical bills. And if you don't have, in a family our size, 2 people insured, even that 20% is eating you alive. So I'm very interested in this. But what really makes me mad, and what I don't figure out, is if they have insurance that they think is really good, and the president and others said, we've got great insurance. Well, why don't you give me that insurance? Why? Because we can't afford it as a nation. All right, I get that, because I'm into being fiscally responsible. So if we can't afford that in a nation, great, cut years, and we'll all take it together. We'll bite it together. Okay, we'll get the same insurance. No. We're not putting that in there. So we're going to figure out what's good for you, but that's not good enough for us. Now, there cannot be a single person, I don't care what party you belong to, in America that thinks that makes sense in a country like ours.
It's unconstitutional.
Well, it's that, Jordan, you're going back to Orwell, it's the equals and the more equals. It's pretty frightening. But raising a lot of animals, I see this. And kids. And so it just drives me crazy. The other thing as a parent that I go through is I experience what happens in schools. So my poor little kids were at preschool, and do not touch his feet. things was dressing up for Halloween. I organized the neighborhood. Everybody comes by trick-or-treating, and I found out for the older folks, if they don't want to be bothered after 8 o'clock, make sure you get your kids to this address before then, that sort of thing. So the school sends home a note telling me that there's no Halloween. Can't do that. No dressing up, no candy, no nothing, don't mention it. So I'm pretty baffled. Because, from a religious perspective, I understand there's this whole Wiccan thing behind it, but I don't really fixate on that. But their whole issue was that it was religious, and that it could make other people feel uncomfortable. And again, I may be old, but I'm not that old to have forgotten what Halloween is all about. It's about what kind of Christmas is about for most kids until they hit about 10, 12. It's about the good stuff. It's about the candy, and it's about the presents. They aren't thinking about religion when they go out trick-or-treating. They just aren't. And it's taking away these simple pleasures because people are over-analyzing things. So get on with the real problems. But look at these things from a real-world perspective. And someone stole the line that I preach to my kids all the time, and I pull out, and I will show you this, because O'Reilly got me into this habit. He chastised me, which he does frequently, because I did not carry a copy of the Constitution in my purse. So he gave me one. In fact, he gave me 20. And told me to give it to all the kids, and then keep them because he wasn't forgetful. And so I put them one in the other car, one in. But he's really into it. And it's been one of the greatest things I've ever done. Because when I'm sitting there, whatever line, I pull it out and I can start reading it and marking it and then getting mad again. Anyway, we aren't doing that anymore. But this one, oddly enough, I got this one over the summer, and as we were coming up here, I pulled it out, and it's from the Wimberley Valley Republicans. So I guess there was a message here for me. But I tell my kids this, and I wrote it in the book that they are raffling off, and I know they've got raffle tickets here. I tell my kids, very few guarantees in life. I'll help you as much as I can. I'm not going to prop you up. The government keeps on trying to, but they shouldn't prop you up. They should give you a great education. If you're down on your luck, they should give you some help, but then they should kick you in the butt and tell you to go out there and do it on your own. That's how you're going to make it. And that's how our country makes it. So I say, go to the Declaration of Independence, and I want you to go in there and I want you to read that part that tells you what we are guaranteed. And the guarantee is, of course, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the kids hate hearing that, because I explain, that means I'm not responsible for your happiness. I'm not responsible for making you happy. Because you can't do that. You can't give a person happiness. You can't give a person self-respect. You can't give a person anything. They have to get that on their own. They have to. And the part that is usually left off is that it is our government. Government is the institution to secure these rights. So that's what they write down. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and government is the institution to help you, to secure these rights. The right for you to pursue happiness.